show Nonsense Makes Sense. I'm Sister Mary Jan Mananzan, your host. I'm sure one of the hottest topics today in politics is all about this cha-cha, con-us, con-com, federalism, and I'm sure many Filipinos are very confused about all these terms and what it entails and so forth. And we are so lucky that we have a visitor who is an expert on this topic and will give us a little, give us not only a little but a real clarity about what this issue is all about. So welcome, Attorney Christian Munsod. If I'm going to read his biography, CV, it will take us maybe half of this program. So I will just say that he is an expert on this topic and that he has been in three important positions in the government, that is as Commissioner Commission on Elections Director, Chairperson batawag doon. And then as you were also the one heading the investigation about the coup.
No, that's the BD. I was a member of the commission.
Yeah, and of the Constitutional Commission
also
that made the 1987 Constitution. Ano po?
Yes.
But before we go into that, very person-oriented kami. So our audience would like to know a little bit more about you as a person. So as I gather, you are from Parañaque, ano po?
Yes.
Talagang Manila boy kayo. Okay po. And then you graduated from
Ateneo Grade School, High School in Prilo.
And
then UP, University of the Philippines for my law. And then my graduate work was University of Pennsylvania.
Pero economics.
In economics.
And then po?
And then, well, I worked for the World Bank. At the World
7
Bank
years.
for 7 years.
Oh. So you stayed
when I left, I was division chief of IFC in Middle East.
In the Middle East. Saan po kayo doon?
South Asia, Middle East.
So
International Finance Corporation.
So where did you live?
We lived in Washington, D.C.
In Washington, D.C.
Yes.
By the way, I'm sure they know that you have a very famous wife also, Solita Munsod. Alam niyo si Mare, si Kumare. And mukhang classmate po kayo ni Kumare.
Yeah, we were contemporaries in UP.
Oo. She was taking economics and you were taking law.
Taking law.
Pero magkasama rin kayo?
She belonged to the sorority that was the sisters of the Upsilon. I was
that's
fraternity
fine.
and she was
Although
sorority.
because she's in another college, hindi po ba? Kasi economics siya, kayo sa law.
Yes.
Pero because of that, that's why
we got together. Yes.
Yeah, you're together.
We were best friends.
Wow, best friends, and then afterwards, wow, that's really nice, no? And then, when did you get married po after you graduated na?
Yes. We got married just before we went to the States to
study.
Yes.
And so when you were in the States, that means to say that your children, your first children were born there?
3 of our 5 children were
born.
Eldest. The 3 eldest were born in the United States.
So they have dual citizenship.
Yes.
And all your children now are all professionals.
They're all professionals.
So ngayon, you are, as I said, you are an empty nest, no? Pero you are doing more than when you were still there.
I lawyer. I lawyer for
and it seems like you have a lot of how do you call that, partnership with some bishops, like?
No, yeah, well, I'm a co-convener of Climate Change Congress of the Philippines with Archbishop Ledesma.
Yeah.
And co-convener of Sulong Carper with Bishop Pabilio.
Is that for the agrarian reform?
Yes, Sulong Carper.
Opo. So that's what you are doing now. You are still lawyering and all that, and
yes.
And doing a lot of parang advocacy, di po ba?
Opo.
Ngayon, ang pinaka-importante yata ngayon na pinaglalaban natin ay tungkol dito sa CONAS. But before we go there, ang dami kasing hindi pa nakakaalam ng ano ba itong gusto nilang baguhin na constitution. Gusto nilang baguhin pero hindi pa nila alam kung ano to. And I read one of your speeches and you were actually talking there about the main features of this constitution. And then I began to wonder, why do they want to change this wonderful constitution, no? So could you please enlighten our audience about what are the main features of this 1987 constitution?
The inspiration of this constitution is the EDSA event. And before we even started writing, we were appointed by Cory Aquino.
How many were you?
48. So we went around the country to ask the people to
At least there is a consultation, di ba?
Yes, before we even started writing. And there were at EDSA, we had a very radical change in the politics. We went from a dictatorship to a democracy.
Yeah, exactly.
But we did it peacefully. But we also promised our people, especially the poor, that we would have a new social order, a radical change, but also through democratic means.
Okay.
So when we wrote the Constitution, we consulted first, we went nationwide, and there were the three central themes that is in our Constitution. One is yung heart, yung puso ng ating Constitution is social justice and human rights.
My goodness! Ngayon yung allergic sila ngayon dyan.
Yun nga sabi ni Justice Cecilia Muñoz Palma, who's the president of the CONCON, sabi niya, the heart of this Constitution is social justice and human rights. So that's the first theme.
Okay po.
The second theme of our Constitution, kasi tinanong namin mga tao, ano bang importante sa inyo? Sabi nila, never again any dictatorship.
Wow, can you imagine that? No wonder they want to change this.
Kaya nga, ang ginawa namin po, iniba namin yung Section 18 ng executive powers, yung to declare martial law, proclaim martial law. Pinahirap namin yun na mag-proclaim ng martial law.
Hindi lang dapat siya, no?
Hindi, meron may mga preconditions, di ba, na first of all, inalis namin yung insurrection, inalis namin yung imminent danger thereof. You can only declare martial law, proclaim martial law in terms of rebellion or invasion when public safety requires it.
Rebellion and invasion. Okay.
Tapos, it's subject to review by the Congress. No?
Yeah,
it's
so
good for 60 days, but even within the 60 days, Congress can review the basis for martial law. And then anybody can go to the Supreme Court to ask the Supreme Court to look into the factual basis of the sufficiency of the factual basis for proclaiming martial law.
And if the Congress doesn't concur, it will not happen?
No, for 60 days. The Congress can stop it anytime. But it's Congress who says stop or pwedeng ituloy or extend.
Sila yung magsasabi nga.
It's Congress. Pero subject to the Supreme Court.
Okay, so parang tatlo silang mag-uusap.
In other words, the three departments of government in the system of checks and balances are there to protect the rights of the people.
Exactly.
That's what it is for. They're called the checking powers on martial law, because yung martial law, once it's been declared, there is no list of powers that it can exercise. It's really virtually a lot of powers.
Very general.
Yes, and therefore you needed for the Congress and the Supreme Court to in effect double check if the President is abusing his power or declaring martial law other than in the case of rebellion or invasion.
Wala akong nakikita naman ganyan sa sa Mindanao. Pero merong martial law ngayon, di po ba?
Yes. And the third theme, kasi yung second theme is never again to any authoritarianism. Okay. The third theme is that never again the dominance of foreign interests in our economy. Because we had a very bad experience with the United States.
Of course,
in order to give us independence, we
had to make lots of concessions.
That had a $900 million attached to it.
Oh my goodness.
They asked, sinabi nila, gusto namin yung karapatan ng mga Amerikano pantay sa Pilipino. Pareho. Parity of rights.
Yung parity.
Including yung ownership of land, yung natural resources, and so on. At ewan ko kung alam ng mga tao na even after our independence, in order for us to change our exchange rate, kailangan humingi tayo ng permiso sa Amerikano.
Wow, di para tayo colony.
Kaya ang nangyari dyan, yung Japan nag-devalue. Kaya biglang umakyat ang export nila. They became a very good exporting country. Tayo hindi. Because of that provision, we had a foreign exchange crisis in the early 1950s.
Yeah.
Kasi bakit nila ginawa yun? Kasi yung mga Amerikano, lagay mo, nagbi-business sila, nagbili sila ng lupa or so on. Gusto nila pag convert to dollars, mas maraming dollars.
Diba?
Kung 2 to 1 exchange rate, mas maraming dollars.
So actually, pala, Americans used to own lands dito.
They're allowed under the amendment to yung amendment sa 1935.
Paano yun? When in 1987, wala na dapat yun. Anong nangyari sa property ng mga Amerikano?
Si Marcos, nilimit niya nung 50 years yung hindi forever yun.
So parang sa kanila lang for 50 years. After that, it reverts. It reverts to the government.
That's right. Isipan po namin, the destiny of the Filipinos must be firmly in and safely in Filipino hands.
Exactly.
Kasi tayo may malasakit sa ating mga tao.
Kaya pwede ko talaga naintindihan, sinong tao, Pilipino, na merong konting pagmamahal sa bayan na is willing to give 100% ownership to foreigners. Anong mangyayari niyan? Magiging Pilipinas tayo in 50 years pero lahat ng land ay owned by others?
Actually, yung foreign ownership of land, even the foreign chambers of commerce said pag pwedeng bumili ng lupa ang mga dayuhan, tataas yan.
Siyempre.
Mas tataas kaysa ngayon pa. Sabi nila, baka nga that's magiging beyond the reach of the poor.
At saka wala nang land reform kasi bakit may land reform kung pwede mong ipagbili sa iba?
At saka may kaibahan kasi sa western countries, si land is an economic asset. Sa atin po, land is a social asset.
So there's a difference.
There's a difference. Kasi po merong connection sa land, beginning with pa mga indigenous peoples and so on. Iba po ang tingin natin sa lupa.
Okay, hindi lang yung pagkakakitaan.
Yes.
That's something to do with our being Filipinos.
Parang we're now mainstream Filipino. Hindi na tayong margins. So, yun naman ang ating gusto mangyari. Kaya gusto natin yung radical social change.
So that is what the 1987 Constitution really mainly was.
At saka kami po, we decided na puputulin namin yung umbilical cord with the United States Constitution. Kasi United States Constitution po they got together yung independent states in order to protect themselves against a foreign power. That's England. Okay.
At that time.
Kaya yung and the United States is a country of immigrants.
Totoo yun. Ngayon, ayaw nila, pero lahat sila
That's them. That's a country of immigrants. Ang gusto lang nila to get away from autocracy. Kaya sa kanila, ang emphasis ng constitution nila, civil and political rights. Individualism and market economy. Tayo iba po We are a country of inequalities.
Alam natin
for centuries. Right? And sabi natin hindi, kailangan addressin natin yan. Kaya ang ginawa natin, yung social and economic rights, we put them at par with civil and political rights. Now, what are social and economic rights? Kasi we are a country of inequalities.
Therefore,
and if we are going to grow, because market forces are also important,
of course,
we must have the same starting position.
Starting point,
Social justice is about adjusting the starting positions before you allow market forces to intervene. Of course,
otherwise talagang yung
that is what social justice is about.
Exactly. At least hindi pare-pareho kung saan sila mag-start.
Mag-uumpisa pareho kasi ilagay niyo. Sabihin nila, hindi, hamon sila mag-compete. Pero yung mga mahihirap, di ba? Pareho bang education nila? Pareho bang kanilang health, ang kanilang health maintenance? Meron ba silang lupain? Meron silang hindi po. Yung kailangan remedyohan natin. Kasi agabyado sila sa labanan in the free market.
Exactly.
Hindi po ba?
It's like yung kunyari meron kang race, no? Ang isa dito, ang isa doon sa likod. Paano mananalo yung nasa likod?
At saka yung maglalaban sila, hindi kumakain ng wasto. May sakit, gano'n. Tapos sabi, sige, mag-race na kayo. Diba?
Paano yun?
Paano yun? Kaya yung ating constitution, merong tinatawag na asset reform. Yun nga, lupain.
So yung agrarian reform po talagang binigyan ng pansin.
Apat yun, agrarian reform, urban reform, land reform and housing, ancestral domain, at saka fisheries. Because these are where the poorest of the poor.
Pero the way I see it, parang hindi masyadong na-implement.
Well, ang problema nga po, yan po ang isa sa puntos ng debate ngayon. Ang sinasabi ng mga gustong palitan ng konstitusyon, ganito pa rin tayo. Kaya siguro, kaya sa kanila, ang may kasalanan yan, yung constitution.
Hindi lang natin na-implement kaya hindi nangyayari, di ba?
Pero, that's illogical. So sabi namin hindi kung babasahin niyo yung constitution natin, nandiyan na yung solusyon.
Exactly.
Kasi ang ating main problems today, it's been like that for generations.
Exactly.
Mass poverty and gross inequalities.
Exactly.
Yung mga solusyon na yan, nasa constitution 1987.
Pairal lang natin.
Ang problema, hindi natin pinapairal. We're not fully implementing it.
Hindi ba parang yun ang sakit natin? We have very good laws. I'm just thinking of laws on women. We have the best laws on women. Meron pa tayong Magna Carta of Women. Pero hindi naman natin even yung 9262, yung domestic violence, hindi alam ng barangay captain ang dapat niyang gawin. Even yung asawa, hindi niya alam ang rights niya. Kasi pagkatapos na magawa ang law, parang walang education about it.
Hindi nila ini-implement ng tunay. Kaya, but meron pang isang problema.
Ano pa?
Na yung pong kontrolado ng mga political dynasties, yung Congress, maski na yung mga asset reform, yung sinasabi ko, agrarian reform, urban land reform, ancestral domain and fisheries, may mga loophole. Okay, I'll give you one loophole.
Isa.
Sa agrarian reform, sabi doon na pwedeng ang i-distribute hindi lupa, kundi shares of stock.
Shares. Ayun ang nangyari sa Hacienda Luisita yata.
Kaya Hacienda Luisita was able to avoid distribution of land for 24 years until it was argued in the Supreme Court finally at nanalo yung mga magsasaka.
Pero hanggang ngayon wala pa yata sa kanila.
Meron na po. About 6,600 na na-distribute. Pero tingnan nyo ito. Yung kanilang support services, yung mga farmer education, ang dinidiin nila sugar. Kasi yung Sugar Central noon ang pag-aari pa ng mga kuhang ko. Ngayon yata pinagbili na yung part. So isa na lang kuhang ko
ang may-ari
among the family. Pero ang pinupush nila yung sugar, hindi naman nandun ng pera. Sabi nga ng mga farmers,
anong gusto nila
tulungan nila kami ng vegetables. Kasi ngayon,
yun ang talagang
with the highway, wala nang tong yung mga municipalities. Pwede nang i-deliver diretso.
Diretso na.
And they get, mas mataas daw ang kanilang income
pag vegetables.
Pero ang tinutulak sa kanila, sugar.
Ay bakit kailangan?
To feed the central.
But must they obey? Hindi ba pwede? Pero kanila na yun they can plant what they like, di ba?
Kasi isang problema po, kaya, malaki nga daw yung na-distribute na land, no? Sabi, 4.6 million hectares ang na-distribute ng DAR. Pero kung titingnan po ninyo, half of that were collective CLOAS. Doon sa collective CLOAS sa mga 2.3 million, mga 500,000 are circumventions of CARP. Yan ang mga driver, accountant, ng mga landowners, hindi tunay na magsasaka.
My
number one. Number two, hindi po nila binigyan ng wastong budget ang agrarian reform.
How can they implement?
Ang nakalagay po sa program, 225 billion dapat ang 20 years of agrarian reform.
Magkano po binigay?
175.
Ay, kalahati lang.
Hindi naman. Pero 170, kulang ng 50 billion.
Ay nako, Attorney Munsod, tapos na po yung first natin. Siguro isang session just on that, no?
Okay.
But anyway, gusto ko lang to end our segment. Pero siguro, since it's not naman perfect, what would you, if you have the power ngayon, what would you still amend, if you can amend, doon sa 1987 Constitution?
Kasi kung babasahin po ninyo yung tinatawag na institutional design literature, sabi nila, if you have a functioning democracy, do not overhaul.
Yeah.
You just refine and amend.
Ano yung refinement?
Ako, for example, tama po palagay ko yung rekomendasyon ng consultative committee na Vice President and President should be voted
the
together.
The same party. O kasi parang ganun sila.
Number 2, pero hindi minention ito ng consultative committee. Sana merong runoff for president. Kung bilay ko, 6 kandidato, yung first 2 maglalaban ulit para yung president will have always a majority.
Ngayon plurality lang po.
Opo. Tapos isa pa yung siguro yung membership ng Judicial and Bar Council, kasi po kasama dun yung Secretary of Justice, and usually, basta sinisingit lang yung gustong appointee ng presidente dun sa list, no?
Opo.
Yun ang appointee ng presidente. So, we have to devise a system na yung membership noon tsaka yung Congress must both be, 2 houses must be represented. Yung how is that going to be exercised? Na hindi dapat dominant masyado yung Secretary of Justice. Kaya kung sinong gusto ng presidente, malamang yun ang lalabas.
Yun ang pupunta.
Kasama sa listahan.
Okay po. Sa pagbalik natin, let's now go to that yung mga issue ngayon. Ano po? Okay, wag po kayong aalis dyan sa inyong pagkaupo, sa inyong TV. Kasi yung tatalakayin natin yung main issue na gusto natin talakayin.